I think there are some things that haven't changed and they will never change, and some things that are radically changing. In the low level, everything is changing. In the specifics, everything is changing. In the skills, nothing has changed.
So, Alberto, welcome to the NeuralPod. It's a pleasure to have you on today. How are you doing?
Great. Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. So yeah, we're going to discuss your background today, some of the work you're doing on agents, and I believe you've also been a career coach. So something we've got in common there. We can discuss that and the market, and as always, some future predictions and where you see the current market, specifically in Agentic AI going. I know it's kind of like how long is a piece of string at the moment because the market's so fast moving, but it'll be great to get your thoughts. So, yeah, over to you, Alberto. You're an engineer by training, but now AI researcher and leading some projects over at Criteo. Do you want to just give it a quick high level overview of your career and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, sure. So the thing is, in my case, I have a kind of an unorthodox career. So I started my career like 20 years ago as a telecommunication engineer. And I started working in Telefónica in Spain, like as a research engineer. So the thing is that after 5-6 years, I wanted to do something else, something like beyond just like, let's say, plain engineering. And then actually I got back to university to study philosophy. But then I said, okay, it's kind of hard to mix philosophy with the technical, my engineer life. So then I started to find AI as an answer to my question. So it's the closest that I could find in the technical world, the closest that I could find to philosophy. So actually, that's why I got interested in AI, and then I enrolled in a master and to follow my PhD. And what happened at that time it was like 2020, 2010, 2011. So the 2008 crisis hit. And then we are in Spain in this post-crisis world. And people were starting to get angry. We had like super high levels of unemployment rates in young people. Like the subprime crisis also hit very hard in Spain. Like people were like evicted from their homes because they couldn't pay the mortgage. And then also we had like many political corruption cases. And then people were like, there was this feeling of this generation that the democratic system was not good enough, right? So it started this Indignados movement, the 15 May movement, like 2011, and I was involved in this, right? So I was like studying my master in AI, and at the same time getting involved in this movement. So what happened is that a group of people, like more engineers and the like, we started to create a group to analyze the social movements online. So we started to do like social network analysis methods to analyze, to understand what's going on with this kind of social movements. And so this got me interested in sociology and social network analysis and so on. And then I had the opportunity to start a PhD exactly on this, right? On analyzing users' behaviors online with machine learning techniques. So that's how I just jumped into this machine learning world. So I moved to France and I started my PhD, and then I did a postdoc, and then finally I just joined Criteo some years later as a research engineer, as a researcher. Sorry.
Yes, makes sense, and I guess that the recommender systems connection to Criteo kind of made sense, I guess, with the types of clients and projects they work on. All right, well, yeah, let's talk into your career now at Criteo, and obviously you've got a great scientific background with your experience so far. You helped shape the scientific agenda at Criteo, specifically around agents, which is a huge buzz in the market right now, a bit of a buzzword. But you're very much chartering the unknown there with some of the cutting edge research that you're doing and developing real world products. Do you want to just talk us through kind of some of the work around shopping assistance that you're doing and agentic interfaces? And specifically, everybody's kind of definitions of agents may be different at the moment. How is it affecting e-commerce specifically, and what type of agents are you developing?
The agentic systems are going to change the way people shop, people buy, and then therefore it's going to affect Criteo's business or the ad tech business. And why? Well, because more and more you will have people not going directly to the website to buy products, but they will ask their assistants, their agents, to do it for them, right? So then it means that it doesn't make sense for Criteo to show any ad to the agent, because the agent is a bot, so he doesn't care. He's not impressed by your display. So you need to maximize now. You need to convince this middleman who is the shopping assistant, that you have the best product, that you have the best recommendation. So you have to be sure that you're giving a super good recommendation, and you have also to explain why you think, like you have to give all the things that you didn't give in traditional recommended systems, such as why you think this product is the best, comparing products, comparing alternatives, like all doing all these kind of product search that we do when you buy a computer. You are comparing 3 alternatives. You got super tired of doing this. So we need to give all the information to the agent to put everything together for the user to take this final decision. That's so in shopping. That's one thing that's what happens. So in Criteo, what we aim for is to be the best recommended system for these kind of agents to call, right? So at these recommended systems, these agents will, and we are seeing already in OpenAI, we are seeing already the first movements towards this direction. You will have this, like the main OpenAI, Google, whatever. So they will need these catalogs, and they will not just contact retail, but they will contact like many providers. So that's why you really need to be best than the others, right? Also, we can also provide our own agents. It is also why not? Like we're also exploring this alternative and developing some products in this direction, like doing this end-to-end solution where we give this agent to the user in some context, and we also give the recommendations. And then also we are developing agents for our clients. So our clients now, they have to deal with, for instance, when you onboard in any at the company, but Criteo as well, you have to create a campaign. You have to upload your catalog. You have to do a lot of bureaucracy to get things started. And this is painful. You have to curate your catalog. You have to decide your audience, to give all a lot of information, metadata. So we are automatizing this so that we we shorten these cycles from days to hours or minutes.
And just take it back a second. What do you think is actually going to happen to the ad tech industry now? Agentic interfaces and agents are being introduced. How is it going to shape the future? Will it just be a case of agents will now be interacting with huge catalogs of data and
we have different markets, different realities, right? So the traditional ads, they won't disappear, because you will still, with your own eyes, read a website or visit a retailer website or things like that. So it will exist, and you will have these traditional displays. Maybe even better, because this traditional, now with LLMs, we're able to understand more about the context, for instance. And before it was kind of hard to understand what was the website talking about. And now you can say, okay, this website is talking about this topic, so I can put a more relevant ad in this website, right? But then also you have this agentic space where the user is interacting with the website, but with the agent itself. But yet, still, these agents need some way to monetize their platforms, right? It's expensive nowadays to call an LLM, even if the price is getting lower, but still, you need a business model for this, right? So we think that many agents chatbots, in retailers, in WhatsApp, in OpenAI, whatever, they will need this way to monetize, to make their space available for uh, for brands, right, to put their recommendations there. So yeah, I think that the two worlds will coexist.
Okay, interesting. And yeah, just to pick up on where you left off a second ago, designing agents for commerce, you've kind of touched on some of the challenges there around expense, etc. But what are the real challenges in developing agents for e-commerce over, say, traditional search and recommendation engines and systems?
Yeah, you can even see it as an opportunity rather than a challenge if you want, because the thing is that you can do more. Yeah, that's true. It's like you can do like traditional recommendation if you want, but you can also do more. So you can use context that you couldn't use before. You can do planning. You can do like now you can. I mean, you can interact with the user. That's super one important thing. Now the user now in many use cases, the user just, for instance, in a retailer, the user enters a keyword, like I'm looking for milk or for a bike. And then you will have this conversation, and now you will have this conversational interface. We'll say, okay, bike, what kind of bike? What? It's for my daughter. Okay, how old is your daughter? Like, give me all these clarifying questions that will help the recommended system to find a more relevant product. And it will also be able to remember your preferences. It will remember if it's your personal, or you have you are logged you have an account in this service. It will remember your preference, what you said before. It will remember you have a family, that you live in London, that you don't like this brand, that you like the other brand. All these things, so that the user you don't have to repeat things to the agent every time, right? So the experience will be much more enjoyable for the user. And then on our side, on the recommended side, we will have to be able to deal with all this context, with all the memory, for instance. There is a lot of open research in terms of how do you manage the memory? What do you have to remember? Memory in recommended systems didn't exist. You just had a classic machine learning system where you have a lot of examples, input, output, and you train your system with this. Now you have an agent for every user. So this agent will have to remember to have a specific memory for that user. And that means many strategies of memory, right? So you will have like episodic memory, contextual memory, like short-term memory, long-term memory, depending on what. Like the user didn't like this product and he told me why, so I should remember it somehow in some kind of memory. The user clicked here, I should remember. The user said he has a dog, so I should remember it somewhere, right? And then memory is not enough. Then in every context, you need to be able to retrieve the proper memory piece that's going to be relevant for this context. So how do you retrieve this so that the context, the working context of the recommendation is as clear and as useful as possible? And then also you have the adaptability. That's another big stream of research that's starting these days. So this agent needs to be adaptable. You may change, your users will change the preferences. It's not the same, for instance, your shopping patterns in Christmas than in summer. Maybe if it's your agent, you have been with your agent for years, it will have to adapt your preference and so on. They adapt. You buy objects they have to remember. So this kind of adaptability for your life phases, and even for many different circumstances, that's another thing that agents need to deal with.
And you've already touched on how it's going to personalize and create a more enjoyable shopping experience for people. And I guess nobody really knows the answer to this question, but how do you think it's going to evolve over the next couple of years in terms of shaping people's experiences and adoption? Where do you actually see it going?
The agentic shopping. I think what we are seeing now that younger people, they are embracing it. It's a very typical pattern, right? Like older people, they are more reluctant, and the younger people, they are already, like most of them, they are already used to chat with these systems every day, and they trust more in these systems. and so on. So I think what will happen is that now we are seeing in a phase, we have been through a phase where people were more, what if the system hallucinates? What if, a lot of fears and a lot of reluctancy. We will see that these systems get better with time, much better. And then actually there was this study that, the capacity of these systems is like being multiplied by a factor of 2 every, what was it? It was every 7 months, I think it was the pattern, right? So, and then we will learn also to better engineer the systems to increase even more the efficiency and so on. So people will also trust more in the systems. And I think let's say in some years, everyone will use an agent for shopping in their daily lives. That would be my prediction.
Yeah. And I suppose touching on your philosophy background here, if people are adopting agents more, and this is completely unrelated to machine learning, but do you think it will affect the retail high street and people actually doing in-person shopping if you've got an agent doing all the legwork, you're just clicking buy at the checkout, etc.
Yes.
Do you think it'll affect the high street?
Yeah. I think it will affect. We are already seeing some movement from Perplexity or OpenAI, trying to opening their access into key to catalogs, to print catalogs, and then also doing the checkout themselves without you leaving the website. You're being able to buy a product here in this catalog, another product from another catalog, and then you do everything without leaving their website. And that's a challenge for retailers because they want the opposite. They want people go to the website because they also want to control the user experience. This is also interesting data for the retailers that they can learn from. So there is going to be a tug of war, and I don't think retailers are going to give up easily this thing to the big tech companies. But they will. But the thing is, I think so. It will be an opportunity. Criteo is moving in this direction. The position of Criteo is helping retailers actually to position themselves very well in this new scenario. So the challenge is, how do you monetize? How do you prepare your catalog to be accessible for agents, but in a fair way? So you don't want your catalog to be stolen and consumed by agents, tracked by agents, and doing the checkouts on any other place and out of your website. So how do you find the good equilibrium, right? And that means that they need to create the catalogs to be accessible for, give some value for agents to consume, and then getting paid for it. Right? And that also implies the idea of data marketplaces, and that's also something that we're exploring in Criteo, the idea of data marketplace where our brands, our partners, our clients will be able to control the way they share their products with third parties.
Interesting. And there's some retailers out there with amazing data and AI teams, but do you think that in general, I imagine Criteo's got a lot of different types of customers, that the average retailer is ready for the agentic wave of a user having its own personal agentic shopping assistant, and people are ready for what's to come?
I don't think the market is ready yet. They think that we have no choice. It's not it's like a force of nature. It's gonna come, but you have to adapt. And if possible, you have to be first, and you have to be the leader to shape the way the world and the market is changing. But but that's gonna change for sure. And everyone's gonna be adapt. And those who don't adapt will die as usual. But that's a role. Right? So companies at Criteo, the role is to help these companies, these retailers, to to adapt to this new scenario. And I think there will be more opportunities for new companies, there will be new business opportunity that will appear in the next years. Like this idea of data curation, of how do you create your data? How do you create like good, understandable catalogs that are easily searchable by agents? That's something that needs still to be done.
Yeah, well, that segues nicely onto the next section of the podcast. You mentioned to me data as a competitive moat, and a lot of people want to implement the latest models. And you said before, models are increasingly replicable, but unique data is a real edge. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, exactly. So what I mean is that a model in AI, I don't know of any company whose advantage is having the best neural net, let's say, right? So maybe there is in some niche market, you have a specialized model for some specific use cases. They will probably exist, but it's not the main strategy, let's say, right? And in companies like Criteo, that's going to be the case. So the model is not your moat. The model, at some point we are seeing this with agents, with LLMs, right? So you are having like open source models are today more powerful than the closed source models were 1 year ago. So there is a delay if you want, but sooner or later we get there, right? The open source community is going to get there. And that happens with all AI models. There are like common knowledge, and there is no secret sauce. There is some secret sauce at some point. Now, OpenAI, for instance, they train the models, they post-train, they create their data, they create like super elaborated synthetic data sets that create very powerful models. But you have behind like open source companies that are like catching up and saying, okay, you are doing this, you are doing that. Now we're going to replicate it. That's something, for instance, we saw with DeepSeek, right? At some point, DeepSeek was, okay, I found a method to do the same thing that you guys do with less resources. And that's going to happen every time. So the moat is the data. So the thing is that the majority of the most part of the data is has been already used by, most part of the public data, all the public data has been used by LLMs, has been seen and used to train these all LLMs. They all have seen already posts, all websites, all the newspapers. That's done. That's used. So what remains is two things. Synthetic data, that's one thing. And then we are seeing like in research and like companies, they are figuring out how to create synthetic data that is realistic enough for your model to learn. But you bootstrap your data from some real scenario, and then with some loops, with some small techniques, you create some realistic synthetic data set, which is way larger than the original one. And then you can use your model, you can train your model there. So that's one main technique. And the other one is private data. So there is a lot of private data that has a lot of value that doesn't have the public data. For instance, commerce data, right? The shopping patterns of users. This is something that you don't find on Reddit. So this is something that Criteo has, Google has, and so on. So having this data is gold, because then you have the same model or more or less similar model to the one that everyone has, but you have fed this model with unique data. And that's what creates your moat.
Interesting. And what are some of the most overlooked data assets in ad tech that you think?
Well, one thing is, but I don't know how it will play out, but the integration with other services. I think that might be important. So if your agent is isolated, it can only do so much. But if it can access to other services, like getting integrated, sharing data with other services, like banks, if you're in sports, like your Strava data, your calendars, like this kind of integration. I think that will be key to give your agent or any shopping assistant or any personal agent value. That's one thing. The other thing is product descriptions. That's for sure, and that's something we're working very hard in Criteo. The catalogs today, they were not ready for the agentic era. So brands, they have to export the catalogs to many, let's say, ad tech companies. And the thing is that the traditional display has a title, an image, a price, and that's it. But that's not enough for the agent. The agent needs more information, the product description, like clear product description. Today, the product descriptions that we have in our catalogs are like robotics, like 4 words. Like often they repeat the information that is already in the title or in the other metadata. So it's not very useful. So companies will have to provide more data for agents to consume. And we will also have to learn to create this data. Or for travel, for instance. For travel is a very challenging vertical, because the data is dynamic. It's not like when you go to buy if you want to explore catalog for electronics, everything nothing moves. It's like you're looking for a computer, just do some semantic search, some filtering, find your computers. Then your agent is gonna think, okay, is it relevant for the user or not? But for travel, it's okay. I go to go on holidays to Italy. Okay, let me check some flights. Okay, no, there are no available flights for that date. What about the next weekend? What about a train instead of a flight? What about, so this hotel is booked also. So what about this alternative? So you have to do this combination of multi-product recommendation, right? And you don't know all the information. You have to query APIs to see whether the service is still available and so on. So that's the other thing. So in terms of data, that's the other challenge. And then also the other data asset will be, so before I talk about this and the memory challenges, so that's the thing, right? So the long-term user history, past interactions, personal information, family data, all these kind of things. And I think here, maybe we will start in a new era where users, they will be more willing to give more information in exchange of good quality services.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. And I think historically people have been quite hesitant about that. But I guess if it was yours actually to see a tangible increase in a better shopping experience, you might be more willing to pass it over. Interesting. Cool. Okay, thank you for sharing that. Moving on to the next part, research, engineering, and the talent crossover. I think you've been fortunate to work on a couple of different sides of defense, but in particular, your research background is really strong, and really keen for you to share some insights there. I've worked with maybe hundreds of companies at this point, and a lot of them define the engineering capabilities of a researcher in different ways. Some of them almost want ML engineering levels of capabilities. In your opinion, what should every good ML researcher be able to do from an engineering standpoint?
I think there are some things that haven't changed and they will never change, and some things that are radically changing. In the low level, everything is changing. In the specifics, everything is changing. In the skills, nothing has changed. So in the skill set, I think that's true for any engineer, for any profession, probably. So curiosity, proactiveness. So the idea of, I don't know how many times I have changed my topic in terms of research, product. I started doing social network analysis, then I did Bayesian inference, recommended systems, multitask learning, then NLP, LLMs, agents. So every 2 years is kind of a new cycle, hopefully building on top of the last one, right? So there is some connection between cycles, but you have to recycle a lot every time, and things are moving very fast. So you have to have this curiosity to be up to date with what's going on. And that will mean that's the difference between a good engineer or good researcher and a not as good one, right? So the good ones are the ones that are most updated with the last trends, the last techniques, and so on. That's always true. In the low level, in the more technical level, everything is changing because now you are not running. I mean, in some areas, people are not programming anymore. They are using. So this year especially has been the boom of coding agents, right? So now, before like 1 year ago, 2 years ago, you were like coding classically. Then ChatGPT appeared, and you were like, okay, asking ChatGPT or Claude or whatever to give you some function to do whatever you wanted, and you copy paste it into your code. Now you have this integrated into your coding interface, into your IDE, and now you are in, and the assistant is looking at your code, and it's creating the test, and it's doing the interface, and it's doing so it's kind of augmenting your capabilities. So being able to play with it, to build with it, that's critical. And still today, I see some engineers that they are not using these tools, and they are way slower than the ones that are using them. So now we have a gap between the ones that are really using these tools and the ones that are still not using them. So that's super important.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, and in terms of advising someone how to work with AI right now, in terms of code generation tools, for example, how soon should they implement them into their daily workflows, for example? Would you advise people to use them straight into university, or when's the best time to start?
To start using these systems.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't have the answer for this. So the advantage of my generation, let's say, is that we have already built without agents. So we have this practice. And now we know how to validate when the agent gives some code or some solution. You can say, okay, this is good or this is not good, or change this. You play the role as an architect rather than the role of a developer, right? For people who start now, I don't know. I think, yeah, for sure, like doing things themselves from scratch, it will always be needed. But I mean, you only have a finite amount of energy and of time. So you will have to sacrifice some part of it and dedicate it some time. Some of this time you will have to move it to learn and to use these AI tools.
Yeah, the reason I asked, I found a friend of mine. He recently asked me to hire him someone who'd done their PhD pre-ChatGPT, and I just wondered, is he quite unique, or is that potentially going to be a thing with someone's problem-solving ability or coding ability? Will people start asking for candidates, pre OpenAI? So
Yeah.
we'll see.
Yeah.
Cool. And as a career coach, what advice would you give someone in general entering into the age of AI right now? Because like you say, some things have changed, some things haven't, but a lot has changed. What advice would you give someone coming into the market, I guess?
Build things. Get your hands dirty. So now you have the opportunity of building things from end to end. Like if you are a researcher or a backend engineer, you don't have any training on front end, for instance, or on database. Now with these systems, you can use them to build all the other things that you don't know how to build, or that would take you months to learn. So that's empowering, right? So now you can create like apps, anything you want with this system. So you can focus on the central part that it's more interesting to you, terms of your profile. If you are a researcher or ML engineer, you can focus on your models, your data, whatever. And then you can have all the front end and everything delegated to the agent. So, and the advantage of this, it changes everything, because now, for instance, in my case, it gives me, I had never coded a complex front end before. I had done like websites or CSS, played with some basic stuff. But then now I'm able to, like to do complex databases, complex front ends with React, apps, a lot of APIs. So now I can talk to the engineers in my company, like at a, I don't know if at the same level, but really it rounded things, right? So now I understand much more what they have in mind, because I have also built them on my side. I mean, so it's going to create, I think it should create like engineers that are more transversal, that are maybe specialized in one thing, but that still know how to do the other things more than before.
Interesting. Okay. And do you think potentially, with an engineer or researcher able to do more with these tools out there, that will lead to companies wanting bigger teams because now people can do more, or actually, companies will want their researchers to do more, do more with less people, basically, with the tools that are out there. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it will depend on the market, right? For me, it's like it's an economics problem. If your market is saturated, then you can do the same thing with less people, because if you don't expect to grow your market, then the only thing you can do to grow your profit is to reduce costs. So that means same productivity with less people. If there is a still market for you, then there will be room for you to increase your team even. But so it will depend on the market.
Interesting. Okay, cool. Well, thanks for sharing that as well. Let's have a little bit of fun around future predictions. Just a couple of questions we ask everyone, and I think it'd be pretty cool to revisit it in the next 6 to 12 months and see where we're at. So, what trend and development? It doesn't have to be in e-commerce or agentic AI. I did mention agentic AI to you before the show, but what development in AI are you looking forward to the most over the next coming months?
Well, one thing that I think would really happen is glasses. And that's something I don't personally love. I don't see people like wearing glasses or even meta glasses or that. But
But
I think we will start seeing this sooner or later. And that will also affect the tech industry also, because that's another space which you might think of ads or whatever. So it's another screen.
I think I'd throw them in the bin. If I got an ad in my glasses, it'd definitely go in the bin.
Either you have these or you pay more expensive glasses. So it's depending on your
Fair.
subscriptions.
Yeah. No, that's a very good point.
But I mean, that's one thing. And, I mean, we all know that Meta is already trying to push for these and other companies. And but the other thing that I would like to see is about open source projects and public funded projects. I think it is very important now that the open source community is strong, has support from society and governments and so on, to avoid increasing the gap between the big tech companies with the big private models with big quantities of private data and so on, and the rest of the world. So AI should become a commodity like electricity, right? So AI should be available for everyone, for any company to use it to increase their productivity, to build services, and so on. So as much as possible, you will have then, of course, like some like the very state-of-the-art models, whatever. So things that more specialized will be not community, will be really the core business for some companies, sure. But there are things that should be like computing, like having sort of a ChatGPT for everyone at an accessible price should be a commodity, and I think it will become a commodity. But I think, and also like multilingual, that doesn't discriminate, that it's not like super English focused and also deals with other minority languages and so on. So we need also governments to get involved here to guarantee that the data is not biased, has any, like it's ethical and so on. And and on top of this, we train models that are accessible for anyone. Yeah, no, that's one thing. And the other thing is, small models. There is this other trend about, like creating now, we're like every time like OpenAI or Google, these companies, they release a new model. It's like even larger than the one before. We don't even know how large these models are, the private ones. But there is also the other trend of trying to do the same with smaller models that fit into your mobile, into your computer, and so on, and that use less energy. That's super important, because otherwise you are seeing like Sam Altman and these companies, they are investing in nuclear power because they say we won't have enough energy to back our AI systems. So we need like smarter and smaller AI systems. Yes. And the other one, the third one, I would say is autonomy, something similar to what I talked before about self-adaptation and so on. But the other trend will be like having agents that will be, now you are having agents that are able to do some tasks that takes some hours. I don't know, let's like some kind of this level of complexity, right? Some kind of level of complexity. This level of complexity and composition of tasks will increase. So at some point you will see agents that are like independent, autonomous for some days, and then they will back to you and say, okay, that is the answer, there is my research, the prompt that I found for you, and so on. That's
yeah. Nice. And out of interest, are you using any agentic tools in your personal life? Not in work?
In my personal life, I have subscriptions to every model, to Claude. I'm continuously comparing this.
Okay.
I'm subscribed to OpenAI, to Claude. I use Claude Code a lot for coding. I also use for some months Cursor. Basically the programming ones, the copilots for programming. These are the main ones that I'm using. And then I try to use NCPs, like connect to my Gmail through agents to send emails automatically. The Jira tickets in the company, that's also useful. Like we can now start dealing with your Jira tickets thanks to agents. And yes, but the limitation is MCP actually, because the thing is that we still don't have enough tools for our agents to exploit. But once we will have tools to access to your bank account, to your Gmail, to your cleaning service, whatever, so it will be your agents will become more and more interesting.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how it evolves next year.
Yeah.
I think there's some predictions for AGI in 2027, and we'll see if we actually get there and what that actually looks like. But it's certainly going to be an exciting 18 months. Okay, and in terms of your research background and recent papers, is there anything that shaped your thinking or any research direction that you found especially interesting or underrated in your career?
I think there is, for instance, one recent paper that appeared last week from one single author that is called Less is More, Recursive Reasoning with Tiny Networks. And it's rethinking the way we are creating these LLMs, the basis to agents, right? So the idea is, this goes in the direction of doing smaller models to the same thing. So this is a paper that is proposing like a new architecture to do the same thing with much less resources, right? So that's one interesting thing. And also the thing is, it's amazing that it's one single author. And I think that will also change. So the AI will also shape the way we do research, because now, like, you have to research means reading papers, understanding the state of the art, doing research, doing experiments, and so on. Especially in experiments, these are heavy. These are like painful. Sometimes you have to spend days finding a stupid bug that you don't find, right? So thanks to these kind of systems, I hope research will become more enjoyable, faster, and researchers will be able to focus on what matters, right? Really, the idea. How do you mix this with this idea with this idea, like more the innovation part? And yeah, what else? There is the other trend about which is called generative information retrieval. And this is something that proposes, instead of, because now when you are looking for a product, what happens is that you input your query in the system, then the system creates a mathematical representation of this query, what we call an embedding, and then it has done the same with any candidate product, and it finds then the closest products to your query. So you embed your query, and then you find the closest ones. So generative information retrieval systems, they are based on LLM models and transformers. What they do is they generate not the embedding of the product to then look for, not the embedding of the query to then look for the closest products, but directly they generate the ID of the product you are looking for. And that's paradigm shift, if you want, because then if you would be able to generate so it's one step instead of two. The system gives you the final answer. And then also you can say, okay, now if I can generate the ID with a generative system like as an LM, I could also generate the explanation of why I recommended this product. And I could also use reasoning techniques, right, to increase the quality of my recommendation given the context or that I know about the user. So yeah, that's generative AI is something interesting to follow. Yeah, I would say
it's interesting. I'll if you can share the link to that paper, I'll put it in the show notes as well after. That'd be great. And final question, just one book, any book or products that's changed the way you think about AI, or really challenged the way you think.
There are 3 books, let's say, 2 categories. One of them is about climate crisis and how AI, what's the connection between AI and data and the internet with climate. And that thing that's important that everyone in the industry is aware of this. It's a French journalist, so the book is in French. I don't think there is a translation to other languages for now, or maybe to Czech, I don't know. But the book, in any case, called L'Enfer numérique in French. It's the digital hell. So it's about how our computer centers, data centers, like data, all the internet. I mean, all the data that we are processing with in the digital world, and now even more with the generative AI. What's the effect on the climate, right? What we need to build these systems, what's behind a GPU, right? In terms of minerals, in terms of the scarcity of some minerals and so on. So that's very, very interesting book. And the other one also is about what they call it. It's about the primitive accumulation. So I think what's happening now. So the books are Caliban and the Witch, and the other one is the many-headed Hydra. So they are kind of 2 related books from historians that analyze how, in the beginnings of capitalism, the process of primitive accumulation has started, right? So the thing is that you had some like common land that was for everyone to use, to enjoy, and so on, to work on. And then at some point, what happened is that you had this land getting privatized and owned by less and less people, right? So you have this accumulation process. And in England, actually, you had a very famous movement of people trying to resist to this, which is the diggers, and there are like movements of people trying to say, no, getting back the lands to the common use, right? So I think the same is happening. So once this happens, it's very hard to undo it. And now I think the same is happening with data. So OpenAI and all these systems, they have been built in public data, sometimes in private data with no permission. And that's too late now. So it's like once they are there, everyone is using these systems, and there is no way to undo it, right? So this kind of data accumulation, I think it's happening now these days, and we have to be aware of that.
Yeah, I'm going to check the last two out. I love a history book, to be honest. So, yeah, thank you. All right. Well, Alberto, that concludes today's episode. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your knowledge and, being so open. I really appreciate it. And thanks for your time.
Thank you, Chris, for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Bye.